What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got another kind of NBA discussion video to, of course, be talking about with you guys. This time what I actually wanted to talk about is my thoughts and opinions on Karl-Anthony Towns and why I actually think the Minnesota Timberwolves must trade Karl-Anthony Towns and why it would be better not only for the team, but for Karl-Anthony Towns in general. So I guess without further ado, let's just get straight into it with the obvious right now. The Minnesota Timberwolves have arguably the worst depth in the league. I mean, it is pretty bad. Like, if you look at it right now, you got Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, who are three solid players. D'Lo is not that good anymore for some reason. Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns are at near all-star level. And then you got no one else. The team is, yeah, it's pretty bad. Like, I mean, in 26 minutes per game at an extremely high usage rate, Malik Beasley is only averaging 11 points. And you might be like, well, only 11 points in 26 minutes is pretty good. Not really, because his usage rate is pretty high in those minutes. For example, last year in 33 minutes, he had a high usage rate where he averaged 20 points per game. His efficiency has been not as good this season. On his 2-point shots, he's only averaging 35%. Not just that, his defense has been really, really bad for them as well. Then we look at, the trade of Taurean Prince. Oh, man. What a huge L this has been for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They traded Ricky Rubio away, who has been incredible for the Cleveland Cavaliers, helping the Cavs be in a playoff contending team right now. They traded him for Taurean Prince, who was averaging 15 minutes per game, 3 points, and 2.3 rebounds on 16% from 3. And they got a second-round pick for a dude right now on the Cavaliers that's averaging like 9 assists. Terrific defense, great leadership, and helping them lead, helping them get to the playoffs potentially. That's an issue. You got Naz Reid, who's actually alright, and Patrick Beverley, who's alright too. Actually rate both of those guys as bench players. Then you got Jared Vanderbilt, who is just, doesn't seem to be improving exactly that much. But hey, he still averages like 6 and 7, which is not bad at all. And Jay McDaniels, Josh Okogie, who are both averaging 4 points per game. As read out right there, it is an extremely weak team, really depth-wise. This team really doesn't have a small forward. Like, legitimately, they don't have a small forward. I think Prince has been playing some small forward minutes here and there as well. Even just like Edwards, I think, has been as well. Josh Okogie. I feel like if they had a small forward, this team, there's problems, problems would be fixed a lot more. Like, their starting small forward is Okogie, who's only averaging 4 points and 3 rebounds on 25% from 3. Like, that is an issue. Trading Karl-Anthony Towns, I think, would be one of the best decisions they've made in a while, because not only is this team not progressing at all, and they're continuing to stay bad, and probably will stay bad for an extreme long time, and that is because they are just not, really doing anything. They're not, like, progressing at all as a team. No one wants to go to Minnesota right now because they're not in that phase where they're, terrible enough where they're probably a top 3 pick right now, but they're not in a phase where they're contending for the playoffs. They're kind of in no man's land, and the issue is it seems like the GM and owners of the team think they should be contending for the playoffs, but in reality, they've got 2 near all-star players, an all-star who's extremely down on form, a 6-man right now who, for a high usage rate, is not playing that great, and an extremely weak bench, and a team that has no small forward whatsoever. I think what you need to do is, you need to trade away Karl-Anthony Towns, and I think just tank. Because right now, they're in no man's land. They are 3-5, which is not bad, but Karl-Anthony Towns liked a tweet saying to get him out of here, and they've got a pretty hard schedule, I'm pretty sure, coming up. They're going to lose a lot more games, and they're going to fall, and they're probably going to be like a bottom 5 team, but probably still not get a top 3 pick or not have a good enough chance to get a top 3 pick. Here's what I'd do if I was them. I think because they're probably not bad enough to be a bottom 3 team, they're not good enough to make the playoffs, I think you just trade Karl-Anthony Towns right now, and I would trade him to the New York Knicks. I believe would be a team that could definitely try and get him. The reason why I think the Knicks could try and get him is because they've got a lot of contracts that I think they'd be looking to trade. For example, if you trade him to New York, you could get an extreme amount of depth out of him. For example, Obi Toppin doesn't really fit in this team right now. An extremely young player who could come in and play some power forward, minutes here and there would actually be really, really good for them. Again, as I said, still a young dude, 23 years of age. He's playing 15 minutes per night off the bench and averaging 7 points. I think you trade for him. He's on $8 million. Then you look at, of course, bring in, Nerlens Noel, who hasn't been that great this season, but I believe he's on about 10 million. He's still averaging 10 rebounds per game off the bench, which is crazy, but his points production is pretty much down. It's only 4 points, but hey, 10 rebounds off the bench, really, really nice. He plays his role to perfection. That's $18 million right there. And then, of course, I think Alec Burks is on like $10 to $12 million. Off the bench, he's averaging 18 minutes per game, and he's scoring 7 points, 40% from 3, and he's contracted for a while. You bring in those 3 players, you match up the Karl-Anthony Towns contract, and you bring in a lot more depth. You go from a team that legitimately has like a decent 5-man rotation, and then that's it. You got no other bench. Your bench is like a good 5-man rotation. I mean, it's like D'Lo, Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards. I'd probably say Jared Vanderbilt, and of course Patrick Beverley. And then the rest of their team's just trash, or has a high usage rate and is not scoring that much, like Malik Beasley. And please don't take this as I hate Malik Beasley. I'm actually a huge fan of Malik Beasley. I loved him last year. It's just this year, it's pretty easy to say that he's not having a good year. You bring in those 3 players, you trade away Cat, and then the spice, the nice, topping on the cake is that you bring in probably 3 first-round picks from New York. Now, here's, the great thing is that New York have some, picks from other teams. I believe they've got a first-round pick from Charlotte. They've got their own. You can get the pick from Charlotte. You can get the Knicks pick. So that could be pick, who knows, 15 and 20. And then you get a future first-round pick, which could also be 20. So that might not be enough for Cat. But honestly, at this point, Cat's value is not extremely high anymore like it used to be, because a lot of these contending teams, which is who Cat is going to go to, don't exactly have that great pick. So if you try and get a top 10 pick out of Cat, it's probably just not going to happen, because all the teams who are going to have top 10 picks are bad, and Cat will probably just not play for them. Again, from the Knicks, you can get 3 solid mid-tier first-round picks and 3 really solid role players, and then you can therefore tank a little better, go to the draft, and get a really nice small forward. Again, there is so many nice small forwards in this draft. This is a draft that I believe does have a lot of wings here and there. So again, you go from, because right now they'll probably end up with pick 7 or pick 8, which hey is really not that great. But hey, if they get rid of Karl-Anthony Towns, they might go down to 4 or 5. And look, there are players here and there. Adrian Griffin, he's 6'6", small forward / guard. He's just a wing player in general. There's Patrick Baldwin Jr., who's a 6'10", small forward. He's kind of there, as well. There's just so many of these wing players they can look at maybe getting, with a top selection. And that's the reality of things, because not only trading Cat, you get all these nice picks in, but you also move up in the draft potentially. And then again, you get a bunch of other picks and some really nice depth players. Also, they finally get a small forward in Alec Burks who can play there. And then you draft another small forward. And then in reality, let's just say, right, they get 5 and they take, we'll say Jabari Smith. He's another, kind of forward. He's a small forward / power forward, 6'9". Let's just say they get him, right? They get him with pick 5, and then at 15, maybe they take a power forward like Damian Collins. All right, that's what we're gonna look at. You could turn Karl-Anthony Towns into Damian Collins, Jabari Smith, Alec Burks, potentially Obi Toppin, who's still a really young dude, and Nerlens Noel, who's still pretty young as well. And then, of course, another first-round pick on top of that. You get way younger, the team gets an insane amount of depth, and then I think that team is more likely to compete for a play-in chance than the one that they've got now. Because those are 6 extremely quality depth players. Edwards is only going to get better. You fix a small forward issue. You finally bring in some young youth to help out even more with this team. And then, hey, you get some veterans in like Alec Burks, and maybe you look to continue to try and, sign and trade for other players, and then maybe they shop D'Lo around or do something like that. That's why they should trade Karl-Anthony Towns. And then Cat wins out of this. You can go to a contending team like the Knicks. The Knicks don't exactly give up too much depth. Look, the first round picks hurt. They do hurt a lot. But then they can be looking at a team that looks like essentially Kemba at point, Evan Fournier shooting guard right, RJ Barrett small forward, Randall at power forward, and then Cat at center. This is one of the best, if not the best, starting five in the league. Then off the bench, of course, you'd still have Mitchell Robinson, Derrick Rose, Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, etc. And again, they might sign some other players or maybe even trade for some other players here and there to make up for the loss of, Alec Burks, Obi Toppin, Nerlens Noel, etc. So again, I think it's going to be really interesting. Maybe he doesn't get traded to the Knicks, but hey, those 3 first-round picks that they could get for Cat would be very valuable, and 3 extreme nice role players. And hey, Toppin on a team like Minnesota, who yet don't really have a starting power forward as well, could it eventually maybe become a star on them as well. So hey, it might be really, really interesting. I think if you're a Timberwolves fan and you're looking at a rotation that, maybe does look like maybe they, sign a center in free agency with some cap that they have available. I'm sure there will be, one out there. But really, at point, you'd still be having like D'Angelo Russell, the point guard position if they don't trade him. Then at shooting guard, you would have Anthony Edwards there. Small forward, you could have whoever they take in the draft. Power forward, Obi Toppin. Then at center, they could roll maybe Nerlens Noel there. Or hey, maybe they look to go out and sign a dude, in free agency. Again, DeAndre Ayton will be looking for a huge max contract. Marvin Bagley would be actually a really nice dude for them to go out and trade for. He's actually really young. Could definitely help out with this team. Thomas Bryant, I think, could be available as well. Then off the bench, you could have like Alec Burks, Patrick Beverley, maybe Damian Collins if they decide to draft him, or whoever else they decide to draft. Taurean Prince probably, if they bring him back. It just really does become a much better team in my opinion. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest NBA content and NBA news. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/vlogging channels if you haven't already. All of them will be linked in the description down below. And of course, don't forget to check out my podcast as well if you haven't already. That will also be linked in the description down below. But as I was saying, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.